Through faded photographs, handwritten letters, and the memories of those who witnessed history unfold, our past has a way of telling us our future. Today we're at the Museum of Dufferin to unveil the forgotten narratives that have shaped our lives in ways we could never imagine from across Canada. Welcome to Spotlight Features, Uncovering the Past. In the spirit of respect and truth, we honor and acknowledge that we are recording in the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tionontati, Attawandaron, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that various municipalities within the County of Dufferin reside within the treaty lands named under the Haldimand Deed of 1784 and two of the Williams Treaties of 1818, Treaty 18, the Nottawasaga Purchase, and Treaty 19, the Adjetins Treaty. Welcome. My name is Mark Grice. To kick off our program, I'm excited to introduce you to Joe Bombacco, a young gentleman from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, who's helping to unearth the city's history brick by brick with his Old Sioux social media account.
Oh, it's definitely a matter of preserving the stories, because without the stories, these are just pictures and little trinkets and old things, especially the bricks or pieces of mortar or anything I have from buildings that were torn down. Get a spark going from being like, oh, that's what it used to look like. I had no idea. Like, you get to see somewhere you've been your whole life in a completely different way. I love releasing content and producing it the way I do. I think history should be accessible to everybody. My name is Joe Bombacco, and I am the curator of Old Sioux. So Old Sioux is more or less just a bit of a photographic series documenting the history of Sault Ste. Marie in a more accessible and digestible way than reading a marathon of paragraphs, I guess. I usually do before and after comparison photos going back as far as the 1800s up until the present day. And really, I'm just trying to document the history that we have here and the history that we're losing. When people remember Queen Street back in the 40s and 50s, they remember two-way traffic. There's a collection of photos that really inspired me to do this. And it was a photo collection by a man named Robert S. Platt. And he did a whole photo series around Canada, around the world basically, but he stopped here in the Sioux and just shot everything around town, like side streets and small little places that you wouldn't think had any sort of significance whatsoever, but they're here captured in a moment almost 100 years ago in beautiful quality, might I add. In a way, I feel like I was walking in his footsteps, kind of capturing those same places today. Obsessively, might I add. Well, I will admit, it does feel like a bit of a treasure hunt sometimes, and especially like lining up the perfect shot or something like that, or finding an old photo that I've never seen before, because I've been doing this for just about 4 years now. But like this, Souvenir Book of the Land of Hiawatha. And I am pretty sure this one is from the 1920s. So this book is running at about a century old now. The experience of finding something and going to that spot and then learning more about that place through whatever way I can, whether it's historical material at the library, books, newspaper articles, anything like that. As long as there's some way I can accurately find dates or information, then I'm happy with that. Honestly, one of my major goals with Old Sioux as a whole is also getting people interested in preserving what historical artifacts and buildings and just anything possible that we still have around. We do have systems in place to protect a lot of places. Some do fall through the cracks, unfortunately, and that has been happening a lot more often than not. If you're someone like me who has an appreciation for beautiful architecture and just staples that we've had in the city for over 100 years, it can be heartbreaking when you see places like that go. It's a labor of love for sure, because I don't make a dollar off of anything I do on Old Sioux, and I don't mind that at all, honestly. I don't do this to gain anything out of it. The only thing I want out of doing Old Sioux is for more people to fully step up to the plate when places that made this city are under threat. But yeah, every brick I collect kind of has its own little story, and any place with historical significance that either burns down, gets demolished, or gets torn down due to neglect or anything like that, I kind of save a piece of it just to kind of tell the story sometime later down the road. It's always really heartwarming to get comments from people who've lived in the Sioux their entire lives and they're getting up there in age these days, who tell you that, you know, you've given them an appreciation for the city they still live in. As long as I can get people interested in this kind of stuff, and especially if they're younger folks, if I can get people in high school or college or even younger than that to get some sort of appreciation for the history of our city and just develop a love for this kind of thing too, then I'm happy. And I think everybody should have a chance to, I don't know, see something that's 100 years old. That's been my main reason for preserving a lot of the past, is to keep the stories going in any way that I can, whether I'm telling them online or if I have somebody come over and just being like, oh, what's that? What's this? What's that? It's like, as long as it catches people's eye and like gets them interested, then I'm happy.
The Gold Fever Follies is a historic institution in the community of Roslyn, BC. Since 1987, the Follies have performed theatrical stories based on the gold rush days of Roslyn for years, and even feature some real characters from out of history.
If you can teach and do entertainment at the same time, great way to learn. My name is Lisa Henderson, and I am the president and artistic director of the Gold Fever Follies in Roslyn, BC. The Follies, it's a musical theater group started by a man by the name of Ray Ferlot back in 1987. The shows are based on the history of Roslyn's gold rush days of the late 1800s. We have singing and dancing, and of course the can-can is always a big part of the show. We perform July and August, and we run Tuesday through Saturday for 2 shows a day for 8 weeks. Produces about 80 shows.
Faster than how you guys are starting off.
I first got involved with the Follies because I was the local drama teacher, and so they were looking for my students to audition. Plus I was friends with Ray Ferlot. He would come to me to borrow things like beards and mustaches and small bits and pieces of props. He ran it on his own for the first 4 years. It became too much for him, so we became a society, and that's when I first became heavily involved. So I've been involved for 33 years, going on 34. It's hard to explain if somebody has never been involved in a live theater performance. There is a high when it opens and you hear that first bit of feedback where, yes, that line got a laugh like we had hoped it would, and just seeing the people enjoy it. Also just knowing that we're giving this, what I think is a pretty amazing work experience for young actors and performers, that makes me feel good. It's been great to see how the Follies has grown in the same way that Ray always had hoped it would, that it wouldn't be just a little bit of local high school kids being, you know, aren't they queued up on stage, but a very professional production. And I feel really proud of the shows we put on. It's just a joy in creating. That's how a story was told in those days of old, when the miners came and started up the city. There are 3 basic functions of drama: to teach, to entertain, and to celebrate. Entertain, obviously. We think we do that. Teach. So what we're doing is trying to teach people the history of the area, and we celebrate our past when we perform these shows.
This was the place where they shipped the coal for Cumberland
out of Union Bay. And yeah, the post office was built in 1913, and it was very much the center of the community. And you go to get your mail, you run into your neighbors or the guy down the street. And now it has the library, so people are always coming and going from the post office area. My family is a big part of this community, and so I didn't want to not be involved and actually learn the history of the area myself. So it's been a learning curve for me, and I'm still learning every day. The post office in Union Bay was going to be closed. Canada Post had planned to close it, but kept it open on a month-to-month basis. And the local electoral A director, Jack Turner, said that Union Bay residents needed to come up with a plan to get some money together to make an offer to Public Works to buy the building if they just wanted the building, and keep the post office operating if it was possible. It's the oldest wooden post office in Canada that still operates as a post office. It was built before World War I. It was built in 1913. And it used to house the postmaster or postmistress. They all lived in there. The first family, I believe, there was at least 10 kids in that family. And they all lived in that small upstairs space. It's a lovely looking old wooden structure with 3 floors. You'll never see another one like it, except in the movies. When you walk in the door, it's like going back to 1913. The brass boxes are on your right, the wicket is ahead of you, and you still use the same old keys that everybody used for that. If you've got box 489, somebody else had 489 for the last 110, 12 years, so you're using the same key that they used. We did have a fellow about 5 years ago put new lettering on the boxes because some of them were peeling off. Because of being on the ocean, the upkeep is tremendous on that building. So that's what we fundraise for now, but we also have stable tenants on the 2nd floor, the 3rd floor, and the library and the post office. So our fundraising efforts have not been as horrendous as they did when they were buying the building and paying off the mortgage.
In 1957, that was the last time I heard it running. That was when I emigrated to Canada. Yeah, my name is Egil Herman Benjamin Lindqvist. That's the whole name. And I bought the bike in 1952. Well, I loved it, you know. I had it for 5 years, and I drove all over in Europe, you know, Denmark, Sweden, and Norway, you know, and I truly enjoyed it.
He immigrated to Canada in about 1956, and the bike stayed behind. He had kind of sold it to a friend who quit making payments, so his family came and repossessed the bike. But in the meantime, the friend seems to have done a little bit of damage to the bike.
His daughter knew about the motorcycle and was hoping to do a favor for her dad to get it running, get it fixed up. And from there we took a look at it and says, yeah, that's probably something we can help this fellow with.
There were not doubts, but there were concerns about what it would take. There was lots of good stuff that was there with the bike, right? The transmission shifted fine. The engine turned over 1 3/4 times and then it banged up, and so we knew that there was something wrong with the engine. But the fact that it would still turn gave us hope.
We've had about 7 or 8 club members work on the bike. We've been working on the bike for 1.5 years, yeah.
It's been a great process learning about this bike, expanding our skills. None of us ever touched something like this before. This has been a wonderful experience. One, we met this really interesting character. He's become one of our club.
It's unbelievable what they are doing now. And now they've been working on it for a year and a half, and we almost finished with it now. It means everything, you know, because it brings back memories what I had when I drove it in Norway, you know.
That was stunningly amazing. When we heard a pop, I went, oh. And then a couple more kicks and it fired up. It was like, oh, do listen to that. But the fact that it fired up, went into a nice little idle, yeah, looking at Egil and the smile is going on Egil's face, you know, that's a year and a half well spent.
You can't describe it. It was just like I felt like start crying, you know, and I still think about at night when I lay to try to sleep, I hear that motor running, you know. It's unbelievable after all those years, you know. Yeah. Hello, boys, that was fantastic.
Trains have a very important history to us in Canada. They once helped bridge towns and provide supplies to all across our great land. For Scriber, Ontario native Ray Jeanette, he had a dream of sharing this rich history on a train.
You watch history disappear, and the museum has so much history. All the artifacts that I've managed to get from all the people I've donated, it's a part of our history. We have to save it. To display it for people to see, for our young generation to see, and the museum is a perfect way to show people what our history is. Okay, come on, I'll give you a tour. My name is Raymond Jeanette, and I'm the curator of the Scriber Discovery Center and the Scriber Rail Museum. Over here, this was donated to us. It's a velocipede, like it's a beautiful job of restoration. And the track it sits on, we saved this track from the Scriber Yard. And the date on this track here is 1883. So it's the original rail that went down in Scriber when the railroad was built. I moved to Scriber in 1980, and my job was the Bell Canada guy here. So I got into everyone's basements because the phone boxes were in the basements. And it was the amount of history that was hidden in everybody's basement. It just blew me away. And I thought, this has to be out for the public to see. So I vowed that I would create a museum, and my vision was to see a museum on a train. The Scriber Rail Museum is a real unique experience. I don't think we've had any complaints, probably just a complaint about the door being closed. Welcome to our theater in here. It's made to look like the inside of a train. So when you come into the movie theater, you'll come in here and you'll grab a seat, and then you hit the movie and you'll see the film starts. I think the biggest thing is to see when you trigger a memory, like someone sees something that they say that my grandmother had one of those. I remember doing this with my grandmother, and to see the emotion, like I get choked up too a lot of times, and that's the key. It's to bring back the memories, the happy memories, and the museum is excellent for doing that. The amount of volunteers through the years that have helped, put this dream together is like very incredible. Like, started in 1992, so it's been 30 years in the final building. Just thoroughly excited, and like I said, is all the help, everyone that's been involved. It's like huge.
What keeps me going here? I absolutely love being around these aircraft, but it's not just the aircraft, it's the stories behind it. My father was a pilot, so I was indoctrinated into the aviation world quite early. When I was 8 years old, my family moved to Marville, France, where my father was a fighter pilot flying the CF-104 Starfighter. 2 Starfighters took off with full afterburner, and the noise and the flame and the speed. It was just very exciting for a young boy to see this all happening, and knowing that my dad was up there doing it as well. It was just fascinating, and I was hooked. My background has been flying for 43 years, of which 17 was in the Air Force, first as a navigator, then as a pilot, and then the remainder 28 years were in the airlines, and most of that was flying large aircraft out of Hong Kong. Aviation is my passion, and aviation history just captivates me. The stories of aviation I just find so interesting. There's such difficult operational, technical, environmental issues that they had to deal with all the time, and how they overcame it. Every aircraft here had a designer. They had to then manufacture it and then test it, and then it goes out into the world, and is it a success or is it a failure? And there are fascinating stories of the individuals who flew all of these aircraft here. And what is a real delight is when you run across some of the pilots and some of the crews that actually flew some of these vintage aircraft. You can see the tears welling up in their eyes, and just the absolute joy that their part of aviation history is being preserved. Currently, we're restoring a Avro Lancaster, and we have a very dedicated, enthusiastic group of restorers who hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years will have that out on static display. As a pilot, you know, I always say, look, I can fly them and I can break them, but I can't fix them. So I leave that to the experts who do that, and I am in complete awe with what they do here. One of our most interesting and prized displays is this Eastman Sea Rover, this flying boat. 5 of these came up to Canada in 1929. They were used till 1942, by which time they were all wrecked. We found this in a barn in Duncan, BC, and it is the only surviving Eastman Sea Rover in the world. And this is a prized possession of the museum here. I love volunteering here at the BC Aviation Museum. It's very rewarding. It's not just about displaying these old aircraft, it's about the stories of those who flew them, the jobs that they did, those who they saved, the fires that they put out, and all those many, many stories. We also have the facility to educate, so we get lots of children coming in, and it's wonderful to introduce them to their first experience of aviation. There's a lot of things that they can do here, but the important thing is the kids can get their hands on, and they just love that. I'm sometimes asked, what's it like to fly an aircraft? You are in control of, well, your own future, in this case, because it's life and death, really. And it's exhilarating to come down and do a safe landing all at the end of it. And I never lost that fascination. It's completely addictive. I never got tired of that. Even after 43 years of flying, it was still an absolute thrill. It was mind-expanding to the point where you just get hooked on it. Often I'd ask myself, what's making this work? You know, because it's sure working for me.
I wake up every day excited to go, what am I going to learn next? What has happened in our history that I have no idea about? That just, sometimes you can't believe the things that have happened. My name is Terry Hockness. I've lived in Saskatoon my entire life, and I've been working on a Saskatoon history project for over 4 years now. I first became interested in Saskatoon history because my family has a long-running history in our city. We started Walter Cycle Company back in 1913, a company which ran for 76 years. I've always wanted to know more about the people of our past, knowing the history of the buildings and things that have come and gone. And so I finally decided to start this massive project of reading every page of the Star Phoenix newspaper all the way back from 1902. When I started the project, I didn't actually plan to read 1,000,000 pages and do the whole history. Originally, I started focusing more on the arts, the music scene. But once I decided if I'm going to read through 1,000,000 pages, I might as well archive everything. Some people think I'm crazy because I've tackled it, because at times I've done 10 hours a day, every day. I joke that this is my full-time job because I put so much time into it. But I love doing it, and I've got over 6,000 followers that read everything I post, and I have a Facebook group, Saskatoon History, and you can see amazing things that I find every day. To me, it really feels like I'm following a soap opera day by day. It's real events, but because it took place before my time, it's all news to me. Going through a century of newspapers, definitely you see newspaper styles of reporting different, the way people talk. The biggest thing noticing is a lot of racist things we would never say or publish now was just common at the time. When I post controversial topics, we've had some heated debates. Some people have been very angry or upset that I would even share articles. But I keep saying I'm simply showing how history was. I'm not trying to tell people that they should like this or accept it. And a lot of people will say, you know, you learn from history. It's so rewarding to me and fascinating as I've gone through 100 years of our city's history. I've connected with so many things on a personal level, connecting people with their story. You know, we all have a connection here, all the people in our city, whether their family worked at a school, at local sports activities. It all comes together, and we're able to put the pieces together for things that have been forgotten. Probably the most interesting and shocking tale in the history of Saskatoon is David Thrynan, who in 1975 kidnapped and killed 4 children in our city. And that started a panic in our city that even affected me as a child, because people were always like, where's Terry? Because I was only 4 years old. So that is a fascinating story to look at almost 50 years later. We have stories, things that we reminisce about, and I believe that those stories need to be retold. And a lot of stories, they get forgotten. And I'm always telling people, if you have ancestors that came to Canada and you don't have any documentation, you know nothing about these people, you know nothing about the life they lived through. It's very fulfilling to help people, educate people, and just to watch an entire city's history grow as I read day by day. And the funny thing is, sometimes I forget what the real date is because I'm so stuck in the past.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here on Spotlight Features. We hope you enjoyed the stories we shared with you today. See you again next time.